gente linda de InSouth, te saluda Gisela, directora de InSouth Magazine, y hoy nos encontramos en esta entrevista con el ex cineasta de Hollywood y autor galardonado Carew, Papritz, quien tiene una idea del funcionamiento interno de los equipos de filmación y lo que debe de cambiar en el futuro en las producciones de Hollywood, ya que tuvimos hace poco información acerca del rodaje de Rust, donde desafortunadamente Alec Baldwin mató a la directora de fotografía, Helena Hawkins, por error. Él nos trae información valiosa, nos deja saber cómo es que esta industria trabaja en verdad y los presupuestos que muchas veces creemos que 6 millones, como es en el caso de esta entrevista que tuvimos y que en esta particular rodaje es el presupuesto que tienen, puede sonar mucho dinero, pero en realidad es un bajo presupuesto que los ha llevado a que desafortunadamente tengan esta tragedia dentro del set. Así que los invito a que conozcan de este tema más a fondo por un experto del área. ¿Y quién es el señor Carew Papritz? Déjame decirte que él ha sido parte del sindicato y no sindicalista en el Departamento de Arte de Televisión, Cine, Comerciales, Videos Musicales. Además que ha trabajado anteriormente con Marlon Brando, Johnny Depp, Madonna, entre otros, y definitivamente es experto en el tema.
Good afternoon, Gisela. Buenos días.
Okay. Thank you for your time and sharing with us all your knowledge about this industry, the filming industry. Could you please share with us more about what do you think that happened on this particular situation with this film and, the whole production?
So it's really interesting. Again, having worked on a great number of films and commercials and movie videos and all these things over the many years, what will happen is, especially if it's a lower budget type of film, which this film was, I want everyone to know that the Rust film was a $6 million film. So you would think, oh my gosh, that's a lot of money. That's not a lot of money. And that means a very, very tight shooting schedule. Again, for your audience, when we talk about shooting in the film world, it does not mean the shooting of somebody. It means the shooting of the camera. So that some people go, well, what do you mean you're shooting on the set? No, we're actually shooting the film. So that's the difference in the wording. So when you have a lower budget film, generally what happens is they have to shoot faster. They have to make film faster. And as a consequence, you have to work harder and you have to work longer hours and you have to work and corners get cut just because there's not that much money to go around. And so what's interesting is someone said to me once, well, Alec Baldwin, he's famous. He should know everybody. He can get the best people in the world. Well, actually, that's not necessarily true because this being a low budget film, the best people have been doing this many, many, many years, and they don't want to do a low budget film. They don't want to get paid on a low budget end. Once you become a union member, and there were union people on this particular film production, you want to get paid top dollar because that's the experience that you have. Mm-hmm. You've taken years to get this experience to become very, very good in the craft that you've learned. For me, it was the art department. I was a set dresser. So I worked, it took me a lot of years to become very, very good at what I was doing. So, and you get paid very well, but at the same time, you want to work with particular people that are very good, that are very safe, and that understand what it is to do a film production. And so for this film production to go what we call go south or go wrong, a number of things really were happening because of the decisions made because it was a low budget film.
Excellent. So what do you think, where does Hollywood will go from here after all this situation happens?
So there's another interesting problem, Gisela, and that is because, for example, in 2010, there were 200 maybe, I think there's a bit more than 200 productions that were around the United States and in Hollywood. 2020, over 500. That's a huge increase in 10 years. Why? Because of all the streaming services. So there's just that much more content out there. But guess what? To try and find the number of people that you need for all these productions that have experience at what they're doing, that's really, really difficult. So you have a lot of inexperienced crews going out there. So I think going forward, productions in Hollywood really, really need to understand that if something is going wrong, and I said this, there should be like a 9/11 way of being able to call someone in Hollywood at a union. If you're in a union, you can call somebody, but really, if there's things are really are unsafe, they should be able to call and say, hey, we have an unsafe film condition. Can you come and check it out?
How can a production, and you just say it, how can be unsecure?
How can we secure it better, or how can we make it better?
Yes, because, I think like it's so important to know all the elements that they're using, especially when you're using guns, you know what I mean? So why are like this?
No, it's a really good question. So let's understand this. When I was reading about this production, I was on a production like this that didn't involve guns. But what happened is that you work so much. I was on locations in Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah, and I was driving what they call a 5-ton truck. I was going back to LA, and then I drive back, and then I'd have to put set dressing up. And I'm just like going, and this was a non-union picture. This was a non-union, so the rules are much less strict. And so here I am, and working day after day. We work 6 days a week. So you work a minimum of 12 hours in the whole industry. When you're on location, you work a minimum of 14 hours, 6 days a week. So you are working. So, and then in this case, we have what's called a turnaround. You need to be able to get 8 hours of sleep. Well, if you're working 14 hours or even 16 hours, on the rust shoot, they were not allowing them to get the full 8 hours, because they had to drive an hour to a hotel that wasn't very good. And then you have to wind down, and then you have to get up at 6 a.m. to go around on the call, on your shoot call again. So it's unbelievable. You are just exhausted after that amount of time. So you start to make mistakes. And I got injured on a shoot. I actually fell off a ladder because the guy that was holding it fell asleep. So, wow. I mean, so this stuff happens, and it happens, but the biggest thing for me was when the camera crew walked off. So the entire camera crew, union camera crew, walked off. That's not a red flag. That's a bonfire. That's a huge deal. The production should have been shut down and stopped right there. Because for those people don't walk off film shoots. People do a good job on them. But for a union camera crew to walk off, that should have been shut down. And it was primarily because of safety concerns that they had. And so I'm hoping that when we have situations like that, that people say, no, we're stopping. We're doing it right now because you have been unsafe on this. There's a lot of inexperience here, that they're able to do that, to police it better.
Okay, definitely. Can you please explain to our audience about the difference between the union and the non-union?
I would love to. All right. So for non-union, you can generally follow the rules of the union, but you don't have to.
Okay.
So, right. I mean, that's, and you get paid better in a union. You get, again, for safety concerns. For example, I'll give you, if you're on a set and you've been working 4 hours straight, and they say it's time for a union break, like you got to take a break or a lunch break, and they go, no, we're going to shoot through the break. We're going to film through the break. Because they're on a roll. Well, guess what? You're going to get fined by the union. And that's for good reason, because think about this. If you're doing this day after day after day after day, and you're just like, well, we can't stop because the director or the producers especially say, oh, we can't stop. We got to keep rolling. We got to keep going. Time is money. Time is money. Yeah. So that's what happens. And then you just get exhausted after a while. And the union part is that, for example, even on the Rust shoot, they weren't getting paid on time. That's a big deal. I mean, you're out there and you, of course, we all like to get paid and get paid on time. That's a big deal. You get paid overtime and triple time. And there's all these things. But with all that being said, there's more safety and there's more experience. That's a huge part. So the more experience you have on a set with people that are experienced, they're not going to allow these type of things that happened on this shoot to happen.
Okay, I understand. Thank you for that explanation. I think, sometimes since we're not like familiar with the industry, with the filming industry, we ignore a lot of things that definitely you had to go through, that we just see the final thing, like we just see the movie and we just think like this is like you're saying, $6 million is not that much, but it sounded for a person that is not in the filming industry like, wow, that's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. Yeah,
yes,
that's a lot of money. He said, I want to add something to all of this. And I think it's the biggest picture of all. When I was working and I had my crews, I would always tell them, and especially with the work that we did, we lifted a lot of heavy furniture. We were lifting all the time. So I would say, guys, lift with your legs. Do not get hurt for a film production. This is make-believe. If you get hurt on a film production, that's wrong. This is make-believe.
Yes.
So it was always about safety. Always. And a couple situations where I said, no, I said, we're not doing this because this is really unsafe, and so sometimes, oh, come on, you can do it. You're tough. I was like, yeah, right. And you're fine. You can get through once or twice, but the one time you do it and you hurt yourself, then maybe you might not be able to work for another 6 months or whatever the case may be. Safety, always first. In this case, you had a number of things that happened and resulted in this horrible accident. Should have never happened. It's make-believe.
Definitely. And I know, Mr. Carew, that's what you wanted to share with the audience about the safety behind the scenes, basically.
Yeah. And when you're talking about the guns on the set and all that, someone had asked, how did live rounds, how did actual bullets get on there? And is that ever happen? Never, ever will you have live rounds because they look too similar to the dummies. So you have to really check. And then all the checking that goes on, there's, 3 sets of people, the armor, the prop person, the assistant director, or the AD, and the actor. Everyone's checking. So if any one of those things doesn't get checked properly, for a live round to be in a gun, that's unheard of.
And that's another good question that you just brought to my attention that I always, and when we talk about it, because I think this has been a big, a topic that everyone is talking about, how that live, I think it's a real gun, right?
Yes.
But not the bullets.
Right.
Okay,
right. There's not the bullets. Correct. That is correct. Yeah.
But the guns are real.
Yes.
Okay. So how the bullets, how you say, there is a process to check the bullets, right? Right. How could get into the, the point that he got a live bullet? That's
what they don't know. And it's really difficult to speculate. They could have been, they're out far away from a lot of people. Maybe at night, some of the people were like, hey, let's go shoot these guns. When you have a set that's not as safe as it was,
okay,
then things are loose. And I only can base that upon experience when things aren't really, really tight. It's funny. I remember on one particular low budget horror film I was on once, it was so bad at the end, the director walked off and nobody was left to direct the film. They didn't know what to do. And I said, well, I went to UCLA Film School. I know how to direct. You want me to direct it? Sure, you can direct it. It was so funny. It was so bad. But it had gotten to the point where the guy in the art department was directing the film. It was ridiculous.
Now, let me ask you this last question because I know you gotta go back. Tell me, in your experience, who do you think is really the fault? Do you think someone's fault?
It's, from my perspective, it's the system.
Okay.
That allowed this. And that's why I can talk about this and give people a perspective on the industry that they don't really understand. Everyone's talking about the shooting. And the thing that led up to the shooting was the producers that made that. It was a low budget film. They had to shoot faster. It was the inexperience of the crew members. It was not, there were red flag after red flag after red flag that they were ignoring. The camera crew walks off. So this thing that happens, it wasn't that it was inevitable, but it's not that it's on some of these film productions, it's typical.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also the, someone said, so is Alex Baldwin at fault? I say, well, it comes from the top. They set the tone for the entire film and how it's going to be set up. And when it becomes unsafe, everyone starts protecting their little areas.
Mm-hmm.
The art department and the greens people and the wardrobe and makeup, and everyone's like, we got to watch out because this thing's out of control.
Mm-hmm.
So,
definitely.
Yeah. So it's, again, make-believe. It's make-believe world. No one should ever get hurt.
Definitely. Thank you for your time, Mr. Carew. We appreciate all this information, valuable information about the filming industry. And could you please send a greeting to InSouth magazine audience?
I can't wait to read the InSouth when it comes out. And please, everyone, visit InSouthMagazine.com when you get a chance to view this wonderful interview with Gisela.
Thank you for your time. And let me now finish in Spanish. Aquí estamos nuevamente con Mr. Carew, que nos acaba de dar toda esta información tan valiosa de lo que pasa detrás de cámara en el mundo de Hollywood y en todo lo que es la industria de los films. Ya saben, pueden seguirnos en www.insouthmagazine.com o todas nuestras plataformas digitales para esta entrevista completa.